Hey, you guys, this is Faith Cawthon-Green, and I'm going live today. I'm going to bring my spiritual brother on, Marcus Coleman. We're going to talk about the masterful deception of the enemy. Um, so, hold on just a second. Let me bring my brother on because it's going to be a good convo, y'all. Um, Hold on, Coleman. Let me see. Hey!
Hey,
Hey. All right, let me turn this music off. All right. Hey guys, we are jumping in. We are going to, I feel like I'm supposed to open in prayer today. So that's what I'm going to do first. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just say thank you for this day, God. We thank you for another opportunity to dwell in your presence. We thank you for another opportunity to hear what you have to say, God. We thank you for another opportunity for your divine wisdom, for your clarity, for your understanding for our lives, for your strategy, God. We thank you right now just for who you are, God. Not just what you've done, God, but just being who you are, the good Father that you are, Father God. That you love us enough to inform us, that you love us enough to correct us, that you love us enough to put us back in position, to give us an opportunity to realign with your will, to be a part of your plan, God. So we just thank you right now for the lives that will be impacted by this live, the people that will watch live, the people that will watch the replay, God, whatever that is, the people that will sow into this word, God. So I pray right now that the hearts will be penetrated, that conviction will come, that understanding will come, that clarity will come, and that forward movement will be produced, Father. I pray all these things in the mighty, matchless name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
amen.
Okay, so we're gonna jump in. I'm gonna let you start off.
Oh crap!
I'm just gonna kind of give a preface because you started this
Hey, it
conversation.
really did
So
start out there. When I'm gonna give like a pre how it even started. I was at work and I was on the phone with Faith, and we usually fellowship in the Lord consistently, and particularly this day, something just clicked, and I was like, you know what? People give the enemy too much credit. I think we've lost sight of it. It's always the enemy. Everybody, you fall short at your job, it's the enemy. You're going through this, it's the enemy. And I kept on saying to Faith, I was like, we giving the devil too much, credit. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. If that hasn't happened in the midst of that, then how is it the devil? I said sometimes it could be God. So so at that time we were exploring in that situation, and I came to some conclusions. Like for example, sometimes God will put you in a position. Sometimes God put you in these positions to build character. We know Joseph got put in the position and it produced character. Jacob, he was wrestling with the angel, it produced character. Paul the apostle, it produced character. Storm on the sign produced character, right? And so to expand on that, right? I was, seeking the Lord this morning, and He opened my eyes to some biblical context of how He would put us into a situation what can be deemed as opposing or uncomfortable, what can be deemed as the enemy, but it's not. That God would actually put us in that position. And that was in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29. He had sent Jeremiah to leave a message with the people of God, telling them that God put them in exile to Babylon. So I was like, wait a minute. And then in the midst of that, God goes on to proceed to tell them that while you're there, go on and make wives, get you a home, create a garden. I'm like, wait a minute. So he sends them in exile, right? He put them there. And then he's
live
telling
life
them to
in the midst of
produce. Right.
exile.
That's that part right there. You go. That's the point I'm trying to bring to the table is that it ain't the enemy. Sometimes God put you in the midst of that opposition, in the midst of that uncomfortableness to build the character. And in that situation, God would send them to the most harsh environment to produce. So that when they
Watch this.
came out,
Ooh, ooh,
go ahead.
ooh,
Come on,
ooh,
come
because
on,
this just hit
come
me.
on,
But watch this.
come on,
It
come
made me
on.
think about what you said earlier today about also being hidden in the midst of exile. So
Yes,
sometimes
yes.
God will put you in the midst of opposition to be hidden. Case in point, Moses.
Come
hidden
on.
in the
In,
palace. He got
in
hidden
that.
in plain sight in the palace,
Yeah.
in the opposition.
Yeah.
So Joseph hidden in the opposition. I mean, we see it over and over again where you're being hidden for, who is that? Esther.
Yep.
Hidden
Prepare for
in
months to become
opposition.
a wife.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. So we see it time and time again where you've been placed in a position to be hidden for an appointed time
Yep.
to come forth. So Moses got taken away from his family, raised up as an Egyptian for an appointed
My
time
goodness.
to come forth. Esther for an appointed time to come forth. So we got to stop believing that we got to stop believing. Okay, God, you saying something to me about Job. So Job, watch this.
Go there.
Job went through all of what Job went through. He was hidden in opposition. Why? Because he was a Moses for his friends. Because at the end, he was the one that needed to lead them out of the mental captivity that they were in, because they couldn't understand what God was doing, right? But through him, they were set free. Why? Because God said, I ain't gonna hear your prayer unless Job prays for you. So they had to watch what Job did so Job could lead them into the proper perspective to understand who God was. And so I think it's so important that we stop and watch. What happens is we're giving the enemy glory when we do that.
Taking all
We
that
are
glory from God.
glorifying Satan and not glorifying God when we don't recognize that God's hand moves in multifaceted ways. We want to believe that God's hand is only moving when something good is happening. But here's the thing. I'm going to use this analogy because I was talking to you about this earlier. You know, we put something in the ground. Think about a farmer that puts a seed in the ground, right? And then all this dirt, you throw the dirt on top of the seed, and then you water the seed, right? A farmer understands from perspective, because he knows how growth occurs, that the seed is not going to automatically spring up out of the dirt as soon as he waters it, right? There's a process that has to occur once the watering happens, once the seed has received sunlight, once the seed has received nutrients from the ground. The seed was put in that ground. My God. The seed was put in the dirt, hidden in the dirt. Why? Because there was nutrients, things that need to be extracted from that dirt in order for the seed to grow. So every dirty situation that God puts you in, every opposing situation that God puts you in, every adverse situation that God puts you in, there's something that you need to extract for growth. And we be out here like, oh, Satan is this. And I want you to tell them what you said about Satan and how he ain't even paying no attention to you.
And I hate to bust people's bubbles, but I'm actually going to enjoy this. Let's be clear. I want y'all to understand something. For the most part, most followers ain't even on the radar of Satan. You haven't even been considered as God's servant to be tried. You see what I'm saying? Because if you were, there's a silence that comes into play. I've actually encountered the enemy. I've encountered him to know what that suffering looks like, to the point where so much things is happening to you and you're suffering so much loss that it kills your voice. You almost feel like you don't have nothing to say. It's like nothing you could do about it. You actually have this traumatic response to freeze, like one of a predator to prey. I said, so if you ain't had that experience, well, number two, watch this. If you just taking care of yourself, there ain't no means for the enemy to attack you if you trying to get yourself together. But he would attack you if you are equipping the saints, if you're creating a church, if you have somebody under your tutelage that you're equipping. That would be
or just
the
doing something for the kingdom in general.
Yes. So the enemy is not attacking you because you decided that you wanted to read your word every day. It don't work that way. It never works that way. In fact, let me be clear. I've been going hard with the Lord for about 10 years, 11 years, right? It ain't until now that my name is ringing in that field of enemy. God brought this up to me a couple of days ago. He was like, They're just now knowing who you are. That was humbling to me because all the stuff that I had been through and under God and God grooming me and preparing me and equipping me, I thought that I was being known. No, it ain't until now that I'm known, which says that I'm being considered. Considered potentially to shift something as it pertains to the kingdom. So again, to reiterate this, the enemy, you're not even on the enemy's radar. You see what I'm saying? So just because you tripped and fell and you had a moment, that wasn't an enemy, that was your nature. See, we're gonna go into that. See, so sometimes go ahead. You about to go there?
We gonna go there, but I
Okay.
want to say this before we go there. Y'all need to understand that the only reason that Satan needs to oppose you is if you're doing something that opposes his plan. Okay? If you going your own way, if you building your own tower to yourself, if you storing up your own barn and you're not doing nothing to advance the kingdom of God, walking in your particular purpose, you're not opposing Satan's plan. Therefore, you're not a threat. Therefore, he ain't coming for you. You're falling victim and being consumed by your own afflictions, by your own transgressions, by your own flesh, by your own decisions to go against the grain of what God wants you to do. That's you. That ain't Satan. But you mad because you say it's Satan. And the reason that you can't get out of it is because you're placing the blame on Satan and not taking accountability for yourself and your own actions. So too often we're going, Satan is opposing me. Satan is opposing me. Satan. No, he ain't. You're opposing yourself. You your own worst enemy because God is putting things in front of you and he's like, look, we're going to go there in a second. He's like, look, this is a thing. You need to deal with this thing. And instead of dealing with the thing, you continue to perpetuate the thing and you keep turning in these cycles. Look, you playing right into Satan's plan because as long as you in that cycle, he ain't got nothing to do. He don't even got to oppose you because you're opposing yourself. Because you keep falling to these transgressions, to these decisions, to this sinful nature, and you're not choosing to turn. Now, when you start to choose to turn and you start to choose to hear what God wants you to do and you start to move in that direction, then you become a threat to Satan. Go ahead. You got something to add?
You about to go into that next segment of nature. Like that's go there and I'm gonna back you up.
I wanna talk about this for a second because we have to understand, and the Bible even says that God will allow us to be consumed by our own afflictions. God will allow us to be consumed by the very things that we've chosen, right? And then that becomes, watch this. And then it takes me to, we were studying this earlier today, or we were talking about it earlier today, about the thorn in the side, about the thorn in Paul's side, right? That sometimes God will allow you to repeat that thing over and over and over and over again. So the thorn, this is 2 Corinthians, this is chapter 12. It starts at verse 7. I'm gonna read a little bit of it. It says, because of the extraordinary greatness of the revelations for this season, to keep me from exalting myself. First of all, hold on, watch this. Because of this proves our point right here. Because of the extraordinary greatness of the revelations for this season, to keep me from exalting myself, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. Watch. He says, because I'm getting all this revelation and understanding of God to keep me from exalting myself. Because what happens? God, now what happens? He's getting all this revelation. He's starting to move and he's starting to build for the kingdom. Now he's on Satan's radar. So God put something in him. Here we go. This proves the point. God put something in him to keep him from exalting himself, to keep him from falling victim to taking the glory for himself, to keep him from taking the territory and claiming that it was him. A messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from exalting myself. Concerning this, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might leave me, and he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. So watch this. This is what God was saying to us earlier today. He keeps the thorn there because that thorn is the thing that keeps you coming back to God. Just like David. David had many thorns. Listen, He had a thorn of murder. He had a thorn of adultery. He had a thorn of misalignment. But every time that he fell victim to that thorn, he came back to God. He repented. He chased after him. And then he repeated the cycle again. Here's the thing. God can remove the thorn if you remain in him. When you choose to turn away from that very thing that is afflicting you, from that very transgression that God placed it there to torment you because he didn't want you to fall victim to your flesh. He placed it there to prune you, to grow you, to get you to keep coming back to him, keep coming back to him. It's like discipline. The thorn becomes a discipline. Every time you fall victim to that thorn, it's the thing that causes you to come back to God over and over and over and over and over again. And every time you come back to God, you stay longer before you depart, right? So you come back, you stay longer, and then maybe you depart and you fall victim to that thing again. And then you come back and you stay longer, and then maybe you fall victim to that thing again. And then you come back and you stay long. Eventually, you remain with God and in God. And God can remove the thorn because now the discipline is not necessary. It's become nature. So you've turned discipline and routine into nature. Go ahead.
And then to add extension to that, some people who are called, this is for the people who are called, right? You heard what Faith explained to you about that process. I'll give you an example. So I come from a family of addiction. Then God would cause somebody such as myself that he would hand me over to the system, which is addiction, right? And I've been in that space that Faith's talking about where I had trouble with porn addiction. So I would go back and fall into this space, and then I would go back to God. Then I would fall back in this space and then go back to God. Then fall away from the porn for a while and then go back to God. And then it just kept going on a perpetual cycle. And then one day I'm like, God, why don't you just lift this off of me? Like, I done done it with all my might. I've been trying to remove myself from it. Like, what is this? Like, why do I keep going? He was like, I already did it. I was like, what? I was like, what does he mean? I already did. And typically you would think because he died for it. But no, that's not what he was saying to me. He was like, whatever the story was, I was already foregoing with the things that he was already setting up for me to understand something about the system, which is addiction. Okay, so he hands me over to addiction, which my family has fallen prey to, right? And he keeps me hidden in the transgression of that system. And I'm falling and I'm getting back up, and I'm falling and I'm getting back up, and I'm falling. But the thing that was getting me there, it was the thing that drew me back to God. Like, for as long as I could just still hear God, I think God is still in it. Oh, yep, I'm falling short here. But that next day, I'm going to get in God's face, and I'm going to be like, okay, God, like, as long as I can hear him, I'm going to be straight. And lo and behold, just recently, he released me. He released me from the system of addiction, right? So we think about, let's even break that down. Sometimes there's a time for deliverance. You see what I'm saying? You might have been in that addiction or some experience for 10 years. I've been in for 25 years. So you go through all this time of, okay, well, God wants you to get me out. You may just be called to the space for that time to understand the trajectory, the system and how it flows, right? No, I'm not making no excuses for the areas that I fell short, but God already died for that. So we ain't worried about that. But the part was that he handed me over to that system that I might be an answer to the problem. Sometimes you got to be in the problem to be the answer. So we always say this all the time. Me and Faith say this all the time. If you're called to something, you're called to be an answer to a problem. So in the midst of, I went through all kinds of stuff. Guilt. I went through transgression. People disrespecting me. I went through all these different things that I was hurt by. Like it affected my manhood. It affected my purpose. It affected my understanding of who I was. As a result of that system, right? I'm not thinking that I'm thinking it's me. But the process was God, not the enemy. That's what I'm trying to show y'all. It had nothing to do with the enemy. I have one encounter with the enemy, and that's it. But watch this. There may have also, God always creates a way of escape, right? I'm going to show you something in transparency. There was a season where he called me out of it, and I didn't want to leave. You see what I'm saying? And guess what? I experienced the transgression, the tribulation of that decision, right? And I stayed another 5 years in turmoil because I didn't take the out when he created the out. You see what I'm saying? So I'm speaking to people who've gone through these experiences to help you understand that God will create a system like this, put you in the problem so that you become the answer. Watch this, like an antivirus. So if addiction is a virus, you got to use the virus to figure out what's in it so that you can create an antivirus. So here it is. What he's done is he's put me in the virus so that I could become an antivirus. But that's it. Go ahead. I just went ahead to get that off right there.
You good. You good. You know, for me, the thing that God showed me was my thorn, and it's so crazy because God knows exactly the thing that He will allow us to fall victim to that's going to push us to come to Him. He knows exactly the thing. He knows the thing that's going to push your button to be like, God, help me. You know, mine was relationships. Mine was relationships with men, specifically broken relationships with men. So I would, and it's so crazy because I would date somebody, and then I'd be like, oh, this is not it, God. And it would end badly. And then I go to God and I would be like, God, what you want me to know about this? God, help me with this. God, I'm heartbroken. God, this hurt me. God, I'm wounded. God, I'm disappointed. God, I'm blah, 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 blah. And I would stay for a while in that space. And then instead of allowing God to lead me to the person who I was supposed to be with, I went and chose again. Then I repeat the cycle. And then I'd be like, God, why you let me get my heart broken? God, why am I going through all this? God, blah, 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 blah. And then I would go back to God. All right, I stay for a little bit longer this time. And then I get restless and I'll be like, I choose again. Somebody else. God, why you God, I can't believe, and then in Bali, I get my heart broken, I get my feelings hurt, I get disappointed, I go through all this crazy stuff. I don't have some of the craziest relationship drama. I don't be like, this is just unreal. The fact that I would deal with this over and over and over and over and over again, but that was my thorn. It was the thing that kept me going back to God, like, help me, help me, help me. And He's like, help yourself. God set me free from this. Set yourself free. That's what He would tell me. Set yourself free. And I kept going back and I kept going back until finally I just said, you know what? I ain't choosing no more. I'm going to stop trying to choose. I'm going to let you, what is it? Delight yourself in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. It doesn't say you got to go out and find it. It doesn't say you got to go and seek it out. That lie that people be telling you about, you trying to find you a husband or a wife, but you ain't out nowhere, so you can't get found. That lie that they be telling you about, if you ain't dating, you ain't never going. That's a lie if I ever heard one. How many wives and husbands got found in the Bible? They didn't have no Tinder. They didn't have no date naps. They didn't have no clubs. Listen, they were in the right place at the right time to encounter the person that God had for them. Period, point blank. That's it. So if you got obedience, you can be found. That's all you need. Obedience to God. So you can be found. You don't need to be out here dibbling. See, then we be looking like, oh, the enemy is trying to get me through these relationships because I dated this person and I dated that person and I ain't nobody, all of y'all out here talking about, I got my heart broken. God, why did I get my heart broken? Because you out here kissing frogs. God didn't tell you to go out there and kiss all them frogs. All you need to do is come to Him and say, show me the prince. Where do I find him? How do I get to him? What do I need to know about myself before you take me to them? See, too many of us are worried about finding the other person and getting the other person in position, then we're not doing the work on ourselves. The reason you can't be found is because you don't look like a wife or you don't look like a husband. So God is waiting on you to come to Him and say, what about me needs to change, to shift, to get in position, to align, to be in the right place and the right time and the right posture to be found. It ain't the me the enemy ain't hiding your husband and your wife from you. He ain't keeping you from it. He ain't doing. God is waiting on you to shift and seek him to get in position so you can get found. Stop chasing all these frogs out here in these clubs, in the streets, in the Tinder, in the whatever. And then, because what you're doing is trial and error. God's matchup system is an exact science.
But let's just add extension to that. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you good. You good.
But how do you know that you're lining up to becoming the person you are in comparison to what you're attracting? Okay, for example, let's move let's go back to relationships in general, not just men and women. I'm talking about friendships, business relationships, all together, right? You know what I noticed? When I was not in the right space in my spirit, I attracted manipulative people. See what I'm saying? I attracted people with fast lips.
They're narcissists.
Narcissistic people, right? So watch this. Sometimes the evidence of what's on the inside of you attracts you. What you're attracting tells you what's on the inside of you. And you know what I was? I was a narcissist to myself. So that was the evidence of what God was trying to show me. But watch this. Now that I've shifted, you know what I'm attracting? The helping hand. People want to give. What you need.
Helpmate, right? So that's what's coming next.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's just the indicator, just to kind of add sides to it. But I just want people to understand the type of people that you're attracting. Neither one, you have the component that draws it, or you are that person that you're attracting.
Yeah, that's right. Because watch, because if you extend brokenness recognizes you, and then brokenness attaches to you. It's like kindred spirits. We reckon, you know how, like, think about, you know, not to make this a racial thing, but you know, when you get in a situation and you're the black person in the room, you automatically gravitate to the other black people. It's just natural. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Now, you don't have to know them. You just kind of automatically gravitate to what's familiar to you, right? So it's the same thing with those broken spirits. You don't have to know them. You don't have to have a specific relationship with them, but you're automatically attracted to it because you're projecting brokenness. They see your brokenness and they're like, oh, we the same kind of people. Compatibility, right? Oh, we're compatible, but you're not compatible in your spirit. You're not compatible in your heart. You're compatible in your brokenness. And that's what you're finding. So you get found by the kindred spirit that you're operating under, and then wondering why it doesn't work. Watch. Then you decide, okay, I know this ain't working, because it's never relationships built on brokenness are never ever going to fulfill you. They're just not. Both of y'all are always going to be looking for something to fill the void. This ain't even what we were supposed to be talking about, but you know, God knows.
It's going.
Both of y'all are always going to be looking for something to fill the void, and neither one of you will have what's necessary to fill the void, because the only way that void can be filled is through healing the brokenness, addressing the brokenness, and that can only come through God himself. So one of y'all decide this ain't working and decide to start getting whole, right? Okay. Now your spirits are no longer compatible.
That's the version of unequally yoked. Not the money, none of that. It's that part. And I think people get that miscued. But to add extension to that, right? You know what could be a sign that you need to get yourself together is when you ever been in a position, and I'm talking to the live, you ever been in the position from a woman's perspective, you know, they'd be like, I don't like her. And they don't know why. You know what I'm saying? Or the guy be like, something about him, man, ain't right. But you think they're the problem. But in reality, your spirit is in correlation with the resistance thereof. It meaning that you may possess what's on the inside of them on you. And the conflict of your spirit is letting you know that that's the living manifestation of you see what I'm saying? You're missing that. That's the sign that you may need to get your affairs in order. Because when you get to the point where you're coming into a posture of false hate, you see what I'm saying? And because you don't know that person, but yet your spirit is like, I just don't like her.
Right.
I just don't like him.
Right.
There's a reflection of self on that person. That's
mm,
showing you the
mm, mm, mm,
conflict of your spirit.
mm,
You
mm,
see what I'm saying? But go
mm,
ahead. I just had to
mm,
go there. I just had to go there.
mm. You good? You good? But I think that this is something that, again, what in the grand scheme of the topic, this is how the enemy is keeping us deceived, because we're looking for him and how he's moving instead of looking for God and how God is moving. And so we're thinking it's deception. So we're putting all our focus on the enemy instead of putting our focus on ourselves and self-reflection and accountability and trying to see what God's hand is trying to do. And so it's the most masterful plan that the enemy can have, because he makes you your own stumbling block. He's like, oh, I ain't even got to do nothing. You don't even know how it's working. You don't even know how to get in position. You don't even know how this works. You watch. You claim God as your father, but you can't even recognize him moving. You
I don't know what the
put
heck.
filters on.
I didn't mean to do that. I guess that was a turn. All right, guys. God had to lighten up the mood right there, because I don't know what the heck happened. I was like, wait a minute. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Distraction.
But you're looking for you saying, okay, God help me, God do this, this is my father, but you can't even recognize how he moves. You can't even recognize when your father is in the midst. So how can you say, oh, I know him, oh, I got relationship, you don't even know. You watch this. Who do you have more relationship with if you're seeking one more than the other? If you're spending more time looking for the enemy, that should tell you where you are. And you're not spending as much time looking for God, that means you have a better relationship with the enemy than you do with God. And now it's time to really take inventory. If everything you do, you watch, because see, here's the thing. Anything that you give your attention to is something that you're giving power in your life. So every time that you're looking for the enemy and you're giving that you think it's opposition, and you're giving the enemy credit for, you're giving the enemy more and more power in your life, because you're establishing a relationship with him. Even though you, in your mind, it's an adverse relationship, it's a relationship regardless, which means now he's got a capacity in your life, because you keep acknowledging him. You know what? I don't even address the enemy anymore, because what I've come to understand is God is in control of all things, because I know who I am. I know that I'm a daughter. I know that I'm doing something for the kingdom, which means that if there is opposition in my life, I know that even if the opposition was crafted by the enemy, he had to go to God to get permission to do it. Have you considered my servant faith? So I don't even address the enemy. Why do I even need to address him? Because me addressing him is not going to fix the problem. Me addressing God and saying, when you going to tell him he ain't got no jurisdiction here no more? I need to address Dad and go, what is it that you want me to know about this, and why you've asked him, has he considered me? God, what's up? What we doing? Job didn't address the enemy. Job addressed God through that whole experience. He did not address Satan. He addressed God. God, why are you doing this to me? God, what's happening? God, he never addressed the enemy. He only addressed God. So too many of you guys are spending so much time focusing on the enemy. You're giving him power in your life without him even having to try or even having to do anything. And that's the same energy that you could be focusing on extending and growing your relationship with God. Go ahead. You know
what's so
like
funny?
The wheels turning up.
Yeah. Because the question I just asked Gary was, how many times did the devil appear in the Bible? You got 66 books. Let's show you how relevant the enemy is, right? Mm-hmm. That I can only account for Adam and Eve, Judas,
Mm-hmm.
Job,
Mm-hmm. Saul.
and Saul.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only ones I could think of. So watch this. You think of all the accounts, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
4 times that deem evidence of an attack by the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But out of 16, it's so many things that God has done, right? Where he
Mm-hmm.
made things
Mm-hmm.
desolate. He
Mm-hmm.
he created famine.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
took resources.
Mm-hmm.
He had
Mm-hmm.
nations destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we
Mm-hmm.
put so much emphasis on the enemy. It ain't even that much enemy attack
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
scriptures. I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to point that out. That
Mm-hmm.
this, to
Mm-hmm.
prove our point is you're
So
giving
watch
too much.
this.
Go ahead.
Watch this. Look how many times David fell. How many times where did you see the enemy reference in regard to David? David committed murder. David committed adultery. David did all kind of heinous stuff, right? You don't see the enemy mentioned as far as his presence there, right? And so again, it brings us back to why are we putting so much focus there when really our focus should be on God? It's kind of like having an argument, right? I used to say this all the time. What are we arguing for? Going back and forth is not going to bring about a solution. Once we identify the problem, right? Let's not argue about it. What is the solution? I don't want to go back and forth with you about what I feel like you did wrong or what I don't care about that. If I express to you something made me feel a certain way and you express to me something made me feel a certain way, I don't want to go back and forth about who was right and who was wrong. I don't care. What is the solution? But we spend so much time focusing on the problem itself. That's why we turn to the enemy, because that's the focus on the problem. When the ultimate solution is God. He says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. He is the solution. He is the answer. He is the author and the finisher of your faith. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. So why are you spending so much time focused on the problem instead of the solution? You can't rectify the problem if you continue to circle around the problem itself. It's just like saying we got dirty water, right? And could continue to test the water. Oh, it's still dirty. Test the water. Oh, it's still dirty. I don't care that it's still dirty. How do we get the water clean? That's what we need to. We know the water is dirty. We know you shouldn't drink it. We know there's a problem with it. Identify the problem so we can identify the solution. Period, point blank. That's it. Let's stop talking about the water is okay, guys. Here we go. Let's stop talking about the water is dirty. Let's stop talking about racism is the problem in the country. Let's stop talking about hatred is the problem in the country. Let's stop talking about infidelity. Let's stop talking about that. Let's talk about the solution. We know that all of those things are a problem. We know they're a problem. We can all clearly see it.
Now
It's
watch
very
this.
clear. Go ahead.
They're only a problem as a result of human nature, outside of the context of how God produced nature in man. So watch this. You got all these experiences we're having as a result of us being outside of the nature that humanity was built for. See what I'm saying? So that's what it is. You're talking about racism, all these different, everybody paying attention to the problem. And that actually is a result to the core, which is human nature is not in alignment in the way that God had created it. That's why there's a result. But yeah, go ahead. That's it. I just want to put that up there. That's the problem. Human nature is off course from how God ordained human nature to be. And as a result, there's racism. Go ahead.
We've gotten away, and part of that is that we've gotten away from the origins of where we're supposed to be. Like, let's just, first of all, and God dropped this on me a while ago, we don't connect on a human level anymore. Because here's the thing. When God created man, he didn't create black man, white man, Asian man, Indian man, blah, blah, blah. None of that oh, come on, God. You know when all of that separation occurred? After the Tower or Babel.
Mm.
We were all created the same people. One mind, one heart, one spirit, one body. That's how God created us. And the reason that we can't align with each other is because we don't see each other as people, as humans, as humanity. We see each other as black, white, man, woman, whatever. That's the only separation that God created. Man and woman. And not because of position or power, but because of nature. Man's nature is different than woman's nature. But they're meant to work in tandem with each other, not to compete against each other. They're meant to be complementary, not supplementary. It's not supposed to be one or the other. It's not supposed to be black or white. It's not supposed to be Asian or Indian. It's not supposed to be like that because we are all one people. And the reason that we cannot connect with each other is because we don't see each other on the level of identity and humanity as God created us to be. We see each other as the outward projection of who we are, but not the inward projection of who we are. I don't care, homosexual, transgender, whatever you are, who are you at your core? I don't care about your lifestyle. I don't care what you look like. Let me help y'all. That is not a part of your identity. It's just not a part of your identity. Your sexual orientation is not a part of your identity. Who are you at your core? Who did God create you to be at your core? That's what God is calling to.
Mm-hmm.
He don't care what kind of community you identify with. That don't got nothing to do with his purpose for your life. If he created you to be a preacher, a pastor, an artist, a dancer, if he created you to be a prophet, an evangelist, if he created you, if he said you're kind, you're loving, if he said you're strong, you're persistent, that's who you are. We're missing it. We're missing connecting with each other to build something because we won't see each other at the core of who we are. We're seeing labels. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of y'all get mad because people identify you by your label, but that's what you present to them. Yep. I'm a black woman, I'm a black man. Then you get mad when people see you as a black woman or a black man and they single you out as a black woman or a black. Well, that's what you presented. Here's me. I am Faith. Okay? Mm-hmm. I am Faith Aurelia Cawthon-Green. I am a daughter of the Most High King. I am a preacher. I am a minister. I am a prophet. I am a mother. I don't, this right here, this ain't nothing but flesh. This ain't nothing but skin and bones. It doesn't have anything to do with who I am on the inside and the core of me, my identity. So you're projecting something and then you're getting mad because people are using that, what you're projecting, to single you out. Well, you set the platform for that. Oh, we are black is king, right? No. Then we wonder why we have then we get mad at other races, at other religions, at other genders because they feel like they're elite to us. Here's the thing. Everybody's doing it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's doing it. When we get back to seeing each other simply for the core of our character, that's when things are going to start to move. That's when mountains are going to move. Go ahead.
Add extension to that, right? Like, it just so happened that Faith revealed to you all the things that she was. But in reality, what she's saying about the connection, if we were all connected, we would see the evidence of that through her actions. It just so happens that social media, that's how it is. But in reality, connection comes from seeing somebody at their core is to see them as a mother, is to see them as the prophet, see them as a woman, right? So if you're projecting, okay, if you're saying something to people and you're telling them who you are, I'm just giving an example. You're telling people who you are, and social media does not give us the pleasure of seeing the action because we impatient. Let's just be clear. Watch this. I put a beat video up every week. You know what I'm saying? They know what I do. I don't even have to say I'm a producer. When I'm ministering to people, I don't have to say that's what I'm showing on the video. The actions will show. And for the sake of the video, yeah, she's explaining this. But if you look at her videos, you'll know that she's a mother. You'll know that she's a prophet. You'll know she ministers. You know she handles her business, right? She's a business person, right? But that's what we lose sight of. Everything is so microwave. Oh, I got to see everything about that person's life. You know what God told me? Just create some music and give an encouraging word. That's all y'all need to know about me now. Everything else, y'all don't need to know that I'm a black man. Y'all see that. Y'all don't need to know that I got paper. None of that. None of that matters. Because what he told me was these two components. This is what I want them to see about you. And that's it.
But watch
everything else
this.
is for me. Go ahead.
Here's the other thing. The reason that you can't be seen is because you're not presenting yourself. Then you're wondering why people don't see you, because you're presenting your representative to the world. You're not presenting yourself. You're projecting to the world what you want them to see, not what you actually are, because you're insecure, because you don't fully know who you are, or because you're not fully secure in who you are, or because you're not fully ready to deal with it, or because you're looking for a sense of validation in something else that you've seen be validated, and you're afraid that if you put yourself out there, you won't be validated for being who you are. Listen, then you wonder why you can't be seen. You can't be seen because you're not presenting you. You can't be accepted because you're not presenting you. You're presenting the representative. You're presenting whatever you want people to see, the formula of what we think is acceptable. No. Then you're going to be mad because people reject you, or you're not showing them the core of who you are. Listen,
and watch this. Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm going to say this one thing. You know what God said to me? He said, part of the reason why the relationships between people are off is because the only way that a true covenant relationship can be forged is through vulnerability. If both parties are not vulnerable to expose themselves, and I'm not just talking about a marriage, a spouse, a romantic relationship. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about business relationships. If you don't expose yourself, and I'm not talking about, oh, I got to spill my every emotion. I'm talking about exposing the core of who you are and stop trying to present who you think people want to see. Expose the core of who you are. Be vulnerable. And that's what establishes a true covenant, an unbreakable relationship. Go ahead.
Add extension to that, I want to be clear on this. I don't think that everything that you are is supposed to be online. Like, for example, there's pieces of me that faith experiences that the world ain't supposed to experience. There's vulnerabilities that you present to certain people, as in covenant, friendships, so on and so forth. You got to be, if there's anything, you might need to ask God what you need to reveal to the world. Because guess what? Some things are sacred. You see what I'm saying? That's the point I'm trying to make. You need to divvy up. Watch this. There's nothing personal about what I put online that God ain't tell me to, right? So there's a level of vulnerability, but a core vulnerability to the world, that ain't for that. That's for a wife. That's for my family. You know what I'm saying? That's for my covenant relationships. Like, that's what, because even God had that type of consensus. How he spent time with the Father was a presentation of his sonship. Then when he went down to the people, he was a presentation as a leader, as a Messiah, right? So there's this dimension. He didn't present his vulnerability of sonship to the people of God. He only gave that to God. And then he presented this part to the people, because that's who it was for. See,
watch this. You know how you know that? Because he said, who do you say I am?
Done.
He said,
done.
He didn't go down. Who do you say I am? Because watch this. whoever you say,
Go there.
Jesus, whoever you say I am tells me whether or not you're a covenant relationship or not. Because
Boom.
can you see who I am? If you can see truly
Boom.
who I am and the core of who I am, then you're a covenant relationship. Because what did he say? What did Peter say when he said, well, who am I?
You're the Messiah.
He said, you're the Messiah. That's why Peter, James, and John was in the inner circle. That's why Peter, James, and John saw the transfiguration, because they knew who. Doubting Thomas didn't know who he was for real.
Yeah, right.
So he wasn't in the inner. He wasn't a covenant relationship because he didn't see the core of who Christ was. He saw who he was presenting to the world. They saw who he was presenting to the world. But Peter, James, and John saw who he actually was. That's why they was in the Garden of Gethsemane. That's why they was at the Transfiguration. That's why they was in the room when he healed Jairus' daughter. Nobody else was allowed in.
That's good.
Watch. They're also the ones that were vulnerable with him. Man, Peter exposed himself something crazy.
Crazy.
To the point where even exposing himself got him some whippings. Like, Jesus, get thee behind me, Satan. Simon Peter. No. But there was an exchange that occurred because they were all willing to present themselves, and it established a covenant relationship. So here's another masterful deception of the enemy, in that you're connecting yourself to people that God has not ordained for you to be in covenant with, which is also hindering your forward movement, because that's another way to be unevenly yoked. So you're yoked to something that is not ordained to move forward with you, so it's hindering you from moving forward. And why? It's just like those friends that Job had. They weren't covenant relationships. They became something to push his purpose, but they didn't know who. They were the ones that were like, Job, you must have done something wrong in order for God. Clearly, if you know me and you know my character, and you know that I'm a man of God, and you know who I am, you're not going to like, you must have did something wrong in order for God. No, you know who I am. So you're not a covenant. They weren't covenant relationships.
I think you need to expand on that. Remember what God showed us about the friendship, the friend, the covenant, and the enemy? Break that down for us so they understand. Like,
so a covenant relationship is a relationship. Watch. A relationship where there's an exchange that takes place, where you're pouring in something to them and they're pouring in something to you, and those are the relationships that continue to feed you. You receive from their overflow and they receive from your overflow, and they continue to go forward with you because they feed your purpose. Okay? Those are the lasting relationships. Friendships are not actually what we think they are. Friends are people who help advance your purpose forward. But watch, the Bible still calls those people Job's friends, right? But they weren't in a line. They didn't pour anything into Job to fill him up, but they did advance his purpose, because they caused him to go even deeper in towards God and understanding what God was trying to do in his situation. So they became a sandpaper, a little bit of abrasion to kind of help polish Job up. See, every person that you call friend is not a covenant relationship. Some of those people are just meant to push you forward. Some of those people are just meant to provoke you. Some of those people are just there for a season to help move you into the position that God has for you. Now watch. There's a friend, and I'm going to call the others a foe. The foe, the enemy, is one that does not help advance your purpose forward. They become a hindrance to your purpose. So that's the difference. Foe is a hindrance to your purpose that does not help move you forward in advancement towards what God has for you. Watch. Friend is someone that does help move you forward, but they're not a covenant relationship. That means they're not meant to be your inner circle. They might be your outer circle. They might be your outer circle. They might be the Thomases and the Judases. They might be the Lukes. They might be they're still disciples. They're still helping to push your narrative forward, right? They ain't your inner circle. They're not the covenant relationships. They're not the ones that fill you up and you fill them, right? Sometimes you do pour into friends, but you don't get a return on friends. So that's what we need to understand about that. Again, deception of the enemy, because watch this. And then what happens? Because we don't understand that, relationships become a stumbling block for us. Because we're looking for people to be something to us that they were not ordained to be. See, some of those people were meant to be friends and not covenant relationships. Some of those people were meant to be foes and not covenant relationships. If Jesus had been looking for Judas to be a covenant relationship, you know how devastated Jesus would have been when Judas betrayed him? Because he would have been expecting for Judas to be a covenant. But some of y'all are expecting people to be something in your life that they were not equipped to be. And then you're getting caught up in resentment and bitterness and depression and disappointment because you're not seeing the nature of who they were supposed to be or ordained to be in your life for that season. And let me just help you. Listen, there can be a progression. There can be people can switch from enemy to friend to covenant from season to season. That can happen. But again, it's all about remaining connected and going to God to help you understand who those people are in your life and what their role is to be for your life, so that they don't become a stumbling block for you. And you keep I'm one of those people. I will tell you, I'm so guilty of it. Because there have been people in my life who I expected to be covenant relationships. And then when they didn't reciprocate what I was pouring into the relationship, it broke me. It broke me because I was like, but I've given so much, and then I have an expectation for you to reciprocate. Not that I give to people or do things for people just because so I can get something back, but you know, it's natural to want reciprocity in your relationships. It's natural to want for what's given to you to be returned. You know what I mean? And so, but it became a stumbling block for me. And I got so caught up in the disappointment of that it hindered me from moving forward and seeing what God was trying to show me about those situations and those relationships. And I just spent so much time grieving over these people and these situations that happened in these relationships that were never even meant to be covenant relationships. So here it is. The enemy got me stuck in quicksand because of, again, deception of not understanding how God creates a thing, right? How God has his hand moving, how God is allowing that opposition to occur in those relationships, because those relationships are pruning me, because they're cutting things away, because they're sanding me down. And instead of understanding that that's just simply what the relationship was meant to be, I stayed there in grief, grieving over the loss of those relationships, because I didn't understand that they was never meant to go in.
I want to add extension to that. See, what she broke down was the perception of how we perceive, but then I also want to add extension to what friendship is. Sometimes the one that God calls to friendship, they don't know that they're a friend. I'll give you an example. So you got to watch out for this. It's just one guy at my job. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a different type of man. I think different. I'm just a different guy. And a lot of times we'll have a conversation and he'll challenge my perception of something. And I'm like, well, dang, that's just me. But what God is using him as a friend for, and he ain't even my friend, as in like, I'm like, hey, we're friends. But God will use him as a friend to me to provoke a means to draw a line. And a lot of times, what it has done, it has provoked me to draw boundaries. I got to correct you on that. That's incorrect, man. I'm actually this.
I don't know what you're perceiving, but I'm letting you know that you're misinformed. Like what that has done is sometimes God will use them to draw out the characteristic that God has called you to. And God calls him friend. Don't mean that you got to call him friend. But that might be a friend to God. See, y'all getting it all flipped up. Y'all thinking, oh, because we have something in common. Let me tell you what, common people, they're an enemy to me. I can't have common in my space. There can't be no common people around me. Why? Because it keeps me stagnant. Right. So that's against the nature of my direction. So for me, common ain't common. I can't have common. That's an enemy to me. You see what I'm saying? Because it hinders me from being able to be productive in what God has called me to. That's it. I just wanted to share that.
I'm going to say this, and then I think we going to wrap up. Again, in the grand scheme of things, what I want you guys to take away from this live is that we've spent too much time looking at our situation and our circumstance from the enemy's perspective. See, the enemy looks at everything from the ground level because that's all he can see. God is peering down. He can see everything. He can see everything that's happening. See, when you're on the ground, you can really only see what's in your immediate vicinity. But when you're up in the air, when you're getting the bird's eye view, the aerial view, you can see everything that's happening around you. So the reason a lot of times that we focus so much on the enemy, first of all, okay, God, here we go, because we're looking at his territory. The earth is the territory that he operates in, right? We're looking at my God, come on, God. We're looking at his territory, which means he can craft it to look like whatever in the world he wants it to look like. So he can craft it to deceive you into believing it is whatever in the world he wants to deceive you into believing it is. But when you look from the aerial view, you can see the truth of what it actually is. So again, you're operating from this ground level perspective. And you're looking and all you see is Satan running around, right? Oh, he running around, he doing this, he doing that. That's what he wants you to see. He doesn't want you to see what's actually what's happening above you, which is God is moving and shifting all these things around. He's going, watch. He's even using the enemy as his pawn to craft something in your life. All things work together for the good of those that love the Lord. All things, including the enemy. So see, Satan has, watch this. Satan has, okay, we're going to say this and then we're going to move forward. Satan has limited perspective. He has limited knowledge of what's happening in the earth. He has limited knowledge of what God is doing in your life. Listen, all he can see, my God, all he can see is the things of the earth. He cannot see the things of the heavens. So he cannot see what God is actually trying to do. All he can see is you and how you're moving. So all he has to go off of is how you're moving. If you're moving and you keep turning in cycles, he's like, oh, they're not a problem right now. As soon as you start to turn and go, let me see what God is talking about. Let me see what God is trying to do. Satan doesn't know where God is taking you. He's not privy to that information. He's not privy to what God has called you to. He doesn't know. All he knows is your history. He knows the history of what you've done. So if you continue to repeat that history over and over again, he sees you do a thing and he's like, well, there's something I can use. There's a transgression. There's a sinful nature. There's an affliction I can use. And if I could just keep them spinning in a circle, repeating that cycle, that's all I need. I don't even need to know where you're going. I don't even need to know what God is trying to do in your life. All I need, watch, that's how he keeps you as your own enemy. Because all he can see is what you've already done, what you've chosen to do. And then he uses it against you. But when you decide to do something different, now you've thrown off his game. It's just like okay, I'm gonna go for football right now. It's football season. I'm gonna go for football. It's just like a team that spends all this time studying the opposition's game tape, right? We know that they run this play, that play, this play, that play. We study this play, we study this play, we study this play, we study this play, we study. Okay, when they see the formation, they know what it is. We've seen this already. But when the coach throws in a new play that they have not studied, they don't know what to do with it. And that's what happens with the enemy too. And here's the problem. Coach is trying to throw in new plays on y'all, but y'all so busy focused on the enemy and what the enemy is doing. You can't see the new play that coach is putting in front of you. He's like, run this defense. And y'all looking over here like, but the opposing team is doing this, and he's like, oh, I don't care what they're doing. Run this defense. Run this. Run this play right here. He ain't never seen this play before. You just do what I'm telling you to do. That's it. But you're spending so much time focused on what the opposition is doing that you can't receive the new play for your life. That's the deception. The enemy ain't even having to do no work. Got anything else to add?
All I'm saying is just a recap. This whole ordeal is to help you understand the reflection of self, your nature, how your nature is your enemy, your own enemy. It ain't the devil. And that until you do some kingdom stuff, you ain't on the enemy's radar. An enemy is not looking for you. You're not considered as a servant of God if you ain't doing something for the kingdom. So you ain't got to worry about the enemy. A lot of times, God gives us the Bible as a blueprint of a direction so that we can get out of the nature we're in and line up with the nature He's called us to so that we can live life abundantly. That's it. That's all I got.
That's it. All right, y'all. I'm gonna pray that you guys will receive this word, that you will be convicted by this word, that you will chew on it, that you will take it back to God, that you will take it back to God, that you will take it back to God, that you will take it back to God to understand what He wants you to know about it. Don't just take it. You know how people be, oh, that was good. Oh, what they said was good. Ooh, and then they leave it right there. Swipe.
Yep.
All right, we watched it. Swipe. And then that's the end of it. No. God put it in front of you because there's something He wants you to know about it for yourself. It's not just, oh, that was a good word. No, the good word is meant to produce a shift in you. His word will not return to Him void. It will go forth and accomplish the purpose for which it was sent. Every word that God puts in front of you is meant to accomplish something in you, to shift something in you. So don't just swipe, listen and swipe. No, listen, take some notes if you need to, and then take it back to God and say, what do you want me to know about this for me? Accountability. Do the work in yourself and stop blaming the enemy for your mess. That's it. Love y'all. All right. Bye.